The story begins with a determined journalist named Mel Ford living in St. Roma Village. He works day and night to expose a pharmaceutical company named BTH, which has been dumping toxic waste into rivers and lakes for decades. Shortly after, his colleague Gigi rings the doorbell. He opens for her. Gigi tells him proudly that she obtained evidence to expose BTH's dirty practices completely and bring down Robert Garbinger, the company's board chairman. Through surveillance cameras, they notice a group of men following Gigi. Mel tells her to escape with the evidence immediately. She jumps over the fence, and unfortunately, the hard drive with the evidence breaks, but she manages to escape. Meanwhile, the men surround Mel and kill him with a gun. His death was gruesome and tragic. The men decide not to chase Gigi, considering her insignificant since the evidence is no longer with her. In another place in St. Roma Village, Winston wakes up to prepare breakfast for Wade, his stepson. He lost his wife, Shelley, to cancer a few years ago. Since then, Wade has completely changed and shut himself off. Winston can't even afford psychological treatment for him because his salary as a janitor at BTH barely covers their daily food. Shortly after, Winston is taking Wade to the school bus stop when they notice their neighbor Daisy and a man named Spence pressuring her. Spence turns out to be the son of a local gang leader, forcing her to sell her land. Daisy reluctantly agrees, then asks him to return her cat's room. But Spence cruelly throws the cat into the street. Winston retrieves the cat and returns it to Daisy, but Wade walks away, upset with Winston for not helping Daisy. Winston calms him and explains that sometimes doing nothing is the right thing, and he'll understand when he's older. To change the subject, he asks about his head exam today. Wade stays silent. Winston tells him with sadness, "Your mom would have been so proud of you." An hour later, Winston arrives at BTH, mops the floors, and takes out the trash. Suddenly, he gets a call from the hospital about test results. At the hospital, Dr. Waller tells Winston that the headaches he's had for weeks are caused by a malignant, widespread brain tumor, and he has about 6 months to a year to live. Winston breaks down, deeply worried about Wade's future. The doctor tells him an advanced drug could treat the tumor, and Winston's work insurance might cover it. Winston immediately calls BTH's insurance officer, explaining he needs funds for the tumor treatment. The officer tells him his platinum package doesn't cover the gold package needed for the drug. Winston is completely shattered. At the same time, Robert Garbinger, BTH's CEO, meets his brother Fritz, the company's security chief. Robert is furious with Fritz for letting Gigi escape. Fritz blames a team called the Crazy Killers, who work for Robert. Robert rejects the excuse and orders Fritz to kill Gigi at any cost. Fritz goes to the Crazy Killers and orders them to find Gigi. They track her to a rented house, but when they search, they find nothing. After they leave, Gigi grabs her bag and quietly leaves, ignoring the homeowner's questions. In the afternoon, Wade nervously watches his classmates' head exams. When his turn comes, the other students mock and boo him. The boy feels embarrassed and scared. He leaves the exam and later discovers someone posted a video of him online on social media. That night, Winston searches online for BTH's health insurance plans and stumbles upon news that the company is holding a charity gala to collect donations tonight. At that moment, Wade returns home with Daisy. She explains she saw Wade upset and decided to walk him home. Winston thanks her and apologizes for not helping her that morning. Daisy says, "No worries, you saved Mr. Treats, my cat." Winston asks Wade about his exam, but he doesn't answer. Winston comments that Shelley wasn't a great artist, but her personality and stage presence made her special. To cheer Wade up, he plays music and wears a tutu, a ballet skirt. Wade looks at him with disgust at first, but slowly softens. Wade picks up an envelope with Winston's brain scan, but Winston quickly takes it, saying there's nothing wrong. He tells Wade he has some work to do and leaves for the gala, sneaking into the back door. At the same time, Robert and his assistant Casey try to gain the governor's support to secure funding for BTH. Robert spots Spence and quietly follows him. Robert smiles as he greets Thad, a dangerous gang leader who funded BTH initially. Thad sternly orders Robert to pull himself together and produce drugs without severe side effects, as this caused BTH's stock to plummet. Later, Robert receives the Citizen Sponsor Award. After the gala, Winston approaches Robert's table and introduces himself, saying he's been a janitor at BTH for 13 years and his insurance doesn't cover the drug he needs. He adds that his son lost his mother before. Casey and the people at the table mock Winston, but Robert asks Casey to handle his case. Winston is overjoyed, thanks Robert, and follows Casey. She tells him to wait downstairs, and she'll get him a voucher. Unfortunately, The door locks on Winston outside, and he hears Casey and Robert laughing at him. Robert tells Casey to fire Winston. Devastated, Winston drives to BTH's factory and uses his ID to enter. GG seizes the opportunity and sneaks in to collect toxic waste samples to expose BTH. Meanwhile, Fritz spots them and calls the crazy killers. Feeling betrayed and hopeless, Winston dips his mop in radioactive waste. In a moment of despair, he uses it to steal money from the company. While running, he bumps into GG, and the stolen money catches fire due to a chemical reaction. The crazy killers arrive. GG steals Winston's ID and escapes, and Winston runs after her. The crazy killers surround him, and despite his pleas, they shoot and kill him. Fritz angrily yells at them for killing the wrong person and orders them to dispose of the body. The team dumps Winston's body in chemical waste. As GG is about to leave, the crazy killer spots her without her noticing. She goes to meet Mel to give him the evidence, the scene we saw at the start. Meanwhile, Winston is still alive, screaming as his DNA cells mutate. We notice him transforming into an alien-like creature. He stumbles home and sees Daisy signing papers to give up her land. As he enters his house, he hears Wade's worried voice asking him to call back. When he tries to enter, Wade gets scared and throws a plate at him. Winston falls onto Spence's car. Spence panics, shoots at him, but Winston's body heals instantly. He attacks Spence, trying to take his gun, and ends up severing his arm. People gather and Winston escapes. Daisy quickly grabs the land contract she signed. The police arrive, and witnesses describe Winston as a terrifying monster. One even claims he ate a baby and has a tail. The next day, Winston wakes in a tent and notices a man beside him. The man introduces himself as Guthrie. Winston tells him his name. Guthrie explains he found him unconscious in the forest and brought him to the tent. Guthrie asks what happened. Winston sadly says he's dying. Guthrie mocks him, saying, "We're all dying, your case isn't special." Winston mumbles, "That makes me feel better." Guthrie continues casually, saying he was a doctor arrested for opposing hospital budget cuts. He tells Winston life is unpredictable and advises him to spend his remaining time with loved ones. Winston laments that his son thinks he's a monster. Guthrie replies, "Then show him your good side." Winston notices his mop, and Guthrie says he found it in a nearby lake. Winston takes it and leaves to see Wade. At the same time, Wade watches the news. The reporter says a restaurant called Miss Meat is being held hostage by an extremist political group called the Evil Bastards, angry over the change of the shop's name from Mr. Meat to Miss Meat. As Winston passes the restaurant, he sees the chaos outside. Inside, customers and staff are terrified, and the armed men mock a blind woman. The police arrive to negotiate and ask the extremists to release the hostages, but the group responds by shooting at the officer. Fed up, Winston enters the restaurant, turns it into a slaughterhouse, and brutally eliminates the group. Outside, the police raise their weapons at Winston, but a restaurant employee stops them, saying Winston saved their lives. The news interviews Winston, asking how he feels as a hero. He looks at the camera and simply says, "Sometimes you have to do something." Wade recognizes a phrase and voice. The report continues, saying kids start calling Winston the Toxic Avenger. Later, Winston goes to a building's rooftop to urinate, but discovers his urine is now acidic. Meanwhile, Spence, still alive, points at the TV furious and tells his men a small green creature is responsible for his condition, ordering them to kill it. At Robert's mansion, Robert berates Casey and Fritz over Winston's transformation, clarifying that the mutated creature and Winston are the same. He orders the staff to determine how the transformation happened. An employee explains BTH's waste is always toxic, but when mixed with a rare genetic marker, it can cause powerful mutations. Robert says they must replicate the mutation, but they say it's impossible without Winston. Robert orders Fritz to kidnap him, but Fritz says he has a child. Meanwhile, GG goes to Winston's house and tells Wade everything, insisting his father has the power to expose BTH. Wade corrects her, saying he's a stepfather, and accuses her of dragging Winston into this. GG insists he was already involved, as she saw him run with the money, and reveals her mother died due to a BTH drug called Biostar. Shortly after, the crazy killers arrive at Winston's house. GG and Wade escape. One of the team members plants a tracker on Wade. Elsewhere, Wade and GG meet Winston. Wade demands to know what's happening. Winston confesses about his brain tumor and how he tried to steal money from BTH to pay for the drug. Wade is shocked, asking, "You were going to die and didn't tell me?" At that moment, Thad's gang members arrive and shoot at Winston. GG grabs Wade, and runs despite his protests to help Winston. Winston wakes, kills the shooter, and escapes. The gang chases him relentlessly, but he takes them out one by one. Meanwhile, the crazy killers track Gigi and Wade, shoot Gigi, and kidnap Wade. As Winston searches for Wade, he finds Gigi unconscious by the roadside. He takes her to Guthrie, who says she's dead. Winston quickly uses his healing blood on her bullet wound, and miraculously, it works. At Robert's mansion, Fritz brings Wade. Robert orders them to lock the boy in the storage room, and they comply. Casey is worried Robert's plan is too harsh on the boy, but he ignores her and tells her to trust him. Back to Winston, Gigi joins him at the lake, thanking him for saving her. Winston explains with sorrow that they took Wade to get to him. Gigi nods and says the last time she saw him was the night her mentor Mel was killed while planning to expose BTH. Winston resolves they must expose BTH and reveal its true face. They go to Gonzalez Spark, where the crazy killers are holding their usual Friday party. Gigi disables their microphones, and Winston enters with his own mic, brutally killing them all. The audience is shocked that Winston killed their favorite band. He addresses the crowd, saying, "These crazy killers are sick people doing dirty work like murder for Robert. They all got rich, and you all suffered." Winston and Gigi interrogate a team member who reveals Robert's location. They head to Robert's mansion and see guards at the front gate. Gigi tries to seduce them, but they end up shooting each other. They go deeper into the mansion's garden and find strange statues. As they approach, the statues release gas, causing them to pass out. Hours later, they wake up chained, with BTH employees preparing to take samples from Winston. Robert mocks him, saying his attempt to steal could now make him millions if they replicate the mutation pattern. The employees take sample after sample until Winston faints. Robert takes a sample and steps outside, coming face to face with Thad, who's watching the news. The reporter says that following Winston's accusations, the FBI has started investigating BTH. Thad glares at Robert, calling him a liability who might snitch if caught. As Thad draws his gun, Robert asks for a final drink and takes a sip of Winston's serum. It gives him animalistic strength, and he kills Thad and his men. Moments later, Casey enters the hall and finds Robert completely out of control, his body rejecting the serum. In desperation, she uses a last drop on herself and orders the employees to perfect Winston's mutation. She also orders them to kill Wade. Fritz intervenes, saying he's just a child, but Casey, enraged, starts beating him, insisting she's doing it to save her brother. Back to Winston, Gigi screams for him to wake up, warning that they'll kill Wade. She blames herself for getting caught, saying Mel would be furious. Hearing this, Winston uses his acidic urine to break his and Gigi's chains. They run out and find Wade in the storage room. Winston tries to take out a guard, but a bullet hits a gas tank and the storage room explodes. Winston collapses. Robert appears with an axe and attacks Winston. Winston overpowers him and is about to kill Robert when Wade appears alive, revealing Fritz saved him before the explosion. Wade calls Winston dad for the first time and begs him not to kill Robert, saying, "You're a good person." Robert launches a final attack, but Winston impales him with his mop. Winston runs to Wade, but Casey stabs her with a wooden plank and kills Fritz. She turns to attack Gigi, but Winston pushes her onto a flammable liquid, which ignites and Casey dies. Winston wakes in a hospital and sees Dr. Waller with a blind FBI agent, one of the hostages he saved at Missmeat. With Robert's crimes fully exposed, the agent agrees to bury any crimes related to Winston and keep them out of the investigation. However, others connected to Robert aren't so lucky. Dr. Waller tells Winston his mutation cured his tumor. Outside his room, dozens of citizens thank him, including Wade, who hugs him. Fritz survived, but now speaks with a voice-changing device and is likely going to prison. Winston proudly watches Wade perform at the school talent show. That's the end of the movie, and we'll meet again for a new recap. Thanks for watching.